Hi, I'm Harry Maravellis, and I'm to talk on navigating conflict. It's a broad topic, and I'm going to narrow my comments to conflict between Christians. I should point out I'm one who tends to avoid conflict, but studying conflict has helped me think about this topic and sometimes realize that being gentle can be helpful. But I'll cover some Bible passages that'll talk about conflict and then give some practical tips on approaching conflict. The first is from Matthew 18:15 through 20. I'll summarize that, it's pretty familiar. Jesus said if someone sins against you, or you could say offends you, you go through these 3 steps. The first is to talk to that person to show that person's shortcomings. If you win that person over, you notice that Jesus' goal is reconciliation. The second step is if there's no resolution, you take that person and go between 2 or 3 other people and bring in a mediator, someone who'll listen to both sides. Okay, if you still can't come up with a resolution, the third step is to bring the matter before the church body. This could be the pastor, it could be leaders in the church like elders. And if the person still does not listen, then we're directed to consider that person as someone outside the church. Now, in the Bible, we're also cautioned to examine our motives. Conflict always centers around some kind of right that we feel has been violated. Okay, and that's very important for us. In James chapter 4, verses 1 through 3, I'll read what James says. What causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from your desires that battle within you? You want something, but don't get it. You kill and covet, but you cannot have what you want. You quarrel and fight. You do not have because you do not ask God. When you ask, you do not receive because you ask with wrong motives, that you may spend what you get on your pleasures. So some illustrations for navigating conflict is as you approach conflict, sometimes you should ask yourself 2 questions. First question is, what am I giving up by continuing or escalating this conflict? And 2, what do I stand to gain? So, for example, am I giving up a relationship? Am I giving up a calm atmosphere? And in doing that, is it worth what I gain? Okay, and a friend of mine married a Christian man named Jim. And at first, she did not share his faith, but over time, she became a Christian. However, their marriage did not last. They divorced, and they had attended Jim's church, and that presented a conflict. It would no longer be comfortable for them to attend the same church together. They were not mad at each other, but they realized it would be awkward. So Jim, in Christian forbearance, decided she would grow better in that church where she had friends. So Jim was the one that found another church. Jim realized that he could insist on attending that church since it was his, and she could go somewhere else, but that would make her give up her best chance to continue to grow in her faith. So what he would gain was not worth the cost. So another thing to consider is that in working towards a solution in conflict, try to find some common ground. My sister Anna works as a consultant for conflict resolution, was hired by a county to mediate between a gun club and some homeowners. It turned out that the gun club had been in an open country area for a long time, and as the town grew, homes began to pop up around that area, and some of the new homeowners were concerned about the noise from the guns and the safety of the guns. You know, some of the homes were within range of some of those guns. So there were lots of issues on both sides. They talked to the county, and the county hired Anna to meet with both groups. As she talked with them separately, she learned that the top priority that both groups had was safety. So she presented this finding to both groups, said, you're both concerned about safety. That's common ground. Let's work on that common ground and find a solution, and together they could mediate a solution. Okay, and a third area is to help bring about resolution in conflict. Sometimes that mediator is helpful. Someone both parties respect can step in, listen to both sides, and present some solutions. This is the second step from the Matthew 18 passage. If the 2 sides cannot reconcile on their own, bring in a mediator. The fourth step is to listen. Did you hear that? Listen. Listening is an art. When you feel conflict coming, a good practice is for one person to say their piece, and then the other person repeats back what was said. This gives you time to process what was said and to ensure you heard what you think you heard. Number 5 can be linked to this idea of listening and dealing with conflict. Do not play the blame game. That means avoid trying to pin the blame on someone. Rather, spend your energy working together on a solution. When my wife Sue and I were raising our children, we tried to avoid saying, "It's your fault." Such a statement most often leads nowhere except to hurt feelings. Instead, we strove to concentrate on identifying the problem and find a solution. For example, say one of our kids got a low grade on a report card and we knew that child could do better. One of us could say, "It's because you let them play so much on the computer." That's blame. Okay, a better way to approach it would be to say something like, "Maybe they play too much time on the computer. Is there a way we could limit the screen time for each child?" That identifies part of the problem and works toward a solution. A sixth area is to avoid the silent treatment. At times, backing off and not talking for a while may help you cool down, but do not prolong it. As the Bible says, do not let the sun go down on your anger. Refusing to dialogue helps no one and does not relieve the hurts. The silent treatment is not a solution. A special note to women: do not use the silent treatment on men. We don't get it. A seventh area is learn to say, "I'm sorry." Sorry can be an art. Often you do not feel you're the only one in the wrong, but you can say you are sorry for the outcome. For example, "I'm sorry you feel bad. I'm sorry I misunderstood." As an example, more than once I've offended my wife Sue. I've learned to start resolution of conflict in our relation with something like, "I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. I did not intend to." At times that can move us away from the surface issues and address the deeper issues, such as her hurt feelings or my intentions, which were not to cause stress. Okay, an eighth area is to discern when to probe to find out what the underlying cause is behind a statement. Sometimes a deeper issue is behind a simple statement. When Sue and I were in our younger years, she said, "We've not gone out for a while." My response was, "Yes, we did. We went out last month." That presented a conflict. I had to learn to recognize what was behind that statement. She was not asking for a list of previous dates. She expressed a desire to do something together. A better response would be, "Where would you like to go?" So a summary is the Bible tells us in Matthew 18, there's a sequence. The first step is the two of you talk together. Second step is bring a mediator. Maybe you can come to a resolution. If not, bring it before the church. But the goal of this process is reconciliation. James chapter 4 tells us to examine our motives. Facing conflict can be uncomfortable, but we are directed in the Bible to navigate it with the goal of strengthening relationships.